Mom, run away now, just by yourself. This is when my 10-year-old daughter saved me, feeling the threat to my life from my husband's terrible treatment. Dad won't do anything to me, so I'm fine. Just hurry up. Pushed by my daughter's urgency, I grabbed only my wallet and frantically ran outside. Then, the next day, worried about my daughter, I sneaked back home when my husband was away. To my shock, my husband, who was supposed to be absent, was there.
A child? She's no longer in this world.
I gasped at my husband's words, spat out so dismissively. My precious daughter, who had risked her life to save me. The thought that I could never see her again. Overwhelmed by shock and despair, I collapsed right there. I'm Natalie, a 35-year-old office worker. I live with my 38-year-old husband and daughter. Originally, I married my husband, thinking he was a manly and reliable boss at the company. A happy life with our child after her birth was my long-cherished ideal. My mom passed away when I was young, and I was raised in a father-only household. I am nothing but grateful to my dad, who raised me with all the love he could muster. Yet I envied my classmates who were pampered by their moms. My dad, a self-made man, runs a civil engineering company. He's raised many young people with various issues, helping them become carpenters and plasterers, despite dropping out of high school. Some of them were rebellious youth, but my dad, with his inherent sense of duty and compassion, reformed them. Compared to the people at my dad's company, my dad was just an ordinary, serious office worker. That's why I thought my dad would like him immediately. But the reaction of my dad when he met my husband was unexpected.
Nice to meet you. I'm Stephen. You're my daughter's boss at the company, I hear. Thanks for taking care of her.
It was just normal small talk, but the conversation was smooth, and I felt relieved. After Stephen left, my dad had a grim expression.
That guy, he hides something terribly wicked behind his eyes. If you marry him, you're going to suffer. I'm not saying this lightly. It's better to call it off.
I was shocked by my dad's unexpected words. Stephen was always so kind, and I couldn't see any reason for my dad's concern. Dad, you just don't want me to get married, do you? That's terrible. Despite numerous discussions with my dad afterward, the issue remained unresolved, and he continued to oppose the marriage. Dad just won't approve.
Let's get married anyway. He'll come around someday.
All right. So I went against Dad's wishes and got married. I thought I might get disowned by Dad, but it seemed worth it. I was crazy about Stephen. When I was packing my things to leave home secretly, Dad caught me.
Take this with you. Use it if you're ever in trouble.
Surprisingly, he handed me a banking card. It had over $30,000, saved since my childhood.
Come back anytime if it gets tough.
Dad's face looked so sad as he said this. Despite this, I left to live with him. On the other hand, my in-laws were also against our marriage. They disliked that Dad's company employed people from various backgrounds, saying they didn't want a wife from such a place for their son. So we became distant from my in-laws. Therefore, we just had a photo-only wedding, yet we were quite happy. After getting married, Stephen wanted me to be a housewife and support him. But I wanted to own our own house soon and give our children a proper education. So I suggested that we both work and save more.
If you really want to work, then make sure you do all the housework perfectly.
What? You won't help?
That's a woman's job.
That was the first time I felt uneasy about my husband. 3 years into our marriage, I joyously told my husband about my pregnancy. You should be happy. You're going to be a dad.
Oh yeah, That's great,
I'm looking forward to it.
but keep doing the housework like before.
He seemed happy, but he never cared for me during my pregnancy. Even when I was bedridden with morning sickness, he got grumpy if his meals weren't ready. Can't we just have ready-made dishes when I'm sick?
Don't be spoiled. Pregnancy isn't an illness.
His words troubled me, but he was genuinely looking forward to the birth. When our daughter Hannah was born, he said,
She looks smart like me.
He adored her. He was great with Hannah, cuddling and soothing her. But, as a henpecked husband, he grew worse about housework. He loved our child, but never changed diapers or bathed her. He'd leave his dishes and scatter clothes on the floor after a bath. It was manageable when it was just two of us, but with a child, it got harder. Soon, my maternity leave ended, and I returned to work. Now I was busy every day with work, housekeeping, and parenting. One day, I couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out, Hey, you. It's tough managing both work and childcare. Can you help a little?
What do you want me to do? I'm already playing with Hannah.
Just put your dishes away after eating and put your clothes in the laundry basket. Just take care of your own stuff.
What? Don't joke with me. That's all a wife's job. Put more effect into it.
I am. And as a couple, I'm just asking for a little cooperation.
You're the one who wanted to work, so take responsibility and do it properly.
But
shut up.
At that moment, something whizzed past my cheek and shattered with a loud noise. My husband had thrown a coffee cup at me. It hurts. When I touched my cheek, blood was oozing out.
It's your fault for not listening to me.
This aggressive side of my husband was something I had never seen before. I was so confused that I couldn't say anything more. From that day, his attacks became a regular occurrence. If I said anything he didn't like, he would suddenly hit the table or kick chairs. Once he even stomped on my foot with full force. Day by day, more bruises appeared on my body, hidden from view. My dad was a strong man.
Women and children are delicate. Men should protect them.
He always said. He would never hurt me, only gently admonish me. Maybe that's why my husband's actions terrified me so much. Whenever he seemed about to do something, I would flinch and become unable to speak. This response only encouraged him more.
You're all talk but a coward. Remember, if you defy me again, you'll suffer.
Please? Just his loud voice made me freeze, and I ended up obeying him. But he seemed to want to be seen as a kind dad to our child, attacking only when she was asleep at night. I kept silent, not wanting anyone to know. But my perceptive daughter seemed to notice. Then one night, something decisive happened. My husband had recently said he was tired of working for others and wanted to start his own business. I didn't think it was that easy and knew it would require funds. But fearing his mood, I suggested saving up for his business instead of outright opposing him.
We don't need to do that. Use your dowry and the money's saved for Hannah.
That's for Hannah's education. We can't use it now. Plus, the money my dad gave me isn't for such purposes. My refusal to comply angered him. He didn't just throw things. He hit and kicked me. It was bad enough to fear for my life. It hurts. Please stop.
You're wrong for not listening to me.
How long did it go on? I must have lost consciousness for a bit, because when I came to, my husband had gone to the toilet or something. That's when my daughter, who had been hiding and watching, burst out. Now it's your chance, Mom. Run away now. But I can't leave you, Hannah. Dad won't hurt me, I'm sure. It's better if I stay. I can distract him. Come back when Dad calms down, okay? Taking advantage of my daughter's words, I quickly grabbed my wallet and fled. I stayed at a nearby hotel, trying to calm down. I can't live with him anymore. I'll take Hannah and leave the house. The next day, worried about my daughter, I returned home when my husband was supposed to be at work. But surprisingly, he was there.
What are you doing back here?
Where's Hannah?
Hannah's no longer in this world. It's your fault.
What do you mean? My husband watched me panic with a faint smile.
Just like I said.
That's a lie. Give Hannah back.
What? You're the one who abandoned her and left the house.
Please, where is she?
I told you, she's not in this world.
I felt a chill run down my spine. What had this man done? Had my kind daughter, who tried to save me by letting me escape, really lost her life because of me? Terrified, I ran from my husband and rushed to the police station. The police visited our house and questioned my husband, but they said there was no evidence of my daughter being harmed. Confused, I left the police station and returned to the hotel, unable to stop crying. Then my husband called.
Give me Hannah's savings. She's gone now, so she doesn't need it. I'll put it to better use.
Did you harm Hannah for money?
Shut up. Just hand over the money.
Trembling and feeling choked by his yelling, I quickly hung up. I lost my daughter because I didn't take her with me that time. I was in a daze for hours. But then it dawned on me. If the police didn't find evidence of my daughter being harmed, maybe my husband lied, and she's still alive. My clever daughter must have found a way to escape from him. If that was the case, there were only a few places my 10-year-old daughter could have run to. Desperately, I called all her friends and acquaintances, anywhere she might have gone. But she wasn't at any of them. Finally, with a faint hope, I called my estranged in-laws, but they didn't know where she was either. With no trace of her anywhere, did Hannah really fall into his hands? Maybe I'll never see her again. Driven to the brink of despair, I couldn't stop crying as I remembered my daughter's sweet face. I'll never forgive him. As for my husband, I hope he gets what he deserves. That's how I vowed revenge on my husband. The next day, I went to my long-estranged dad and apologized on my knees for everything that had happened. I worried about turning to Dad after defying his opposition to the marriage, but I couldn't think of anyone else who could help. Besides,
come back if it gets tough,
Dad had said when I left home. I realized he was the only one I could turn to. Dad, Stephen was the terrible person you said he was. I want to avenge my daughter. Please help me.
Lift your head. You're the one who suffered the most. I'll do anything I can.
Dad's kind words gave me courage. A few days later, I returned to my former home, making sure my husband was out. I had Dad's company employees help me move all my belongings to my parents' house. I also found something shocking in my husband's study and took it with me. That night, realizing my things were gone, my husband called repeatedly, but I ignored him. From that day, I began my plan to bring him down. First, I went to his company and exposed his scheme. I had found customer lists and confidential information in his study. He was planning to use them for his startup to poach clients. Of course, this caused a major issue at work, and he was soon fired. He found other jobs and part-time work, but I made sure he was fired from each one with Dad's help. In our community, just the sight of my dad made people nervous and obliging. I always made sure they didn't tell my husband, so he never understood why he kept losing jobs. He must be lamenting his misfortune by now. Next, I used Dad's influence to ban him from his favorite clubs and bars. I also spread the word among his friends and acquaintances that he was a daughter killer, isolating him. Now no one was there to help him. Finally, I made arrangements with the real estate agency and had him evicted from our apartment. Dad's influence helped, but it seemed he couldn't afford the rent anyway. On the day he was supposed to leave the apartment, I waited in a car with Dad. Sure enough, my husband came out with his belongings and headed to a nearby park. There he was, sitting on a bench with a lifeless expression, looking up at the sky. Probably with no one left to turn to, he had become homeless. As I approached him slowly, he noticed me and looked surprised. "You've really fallen apart in just half a year."
"Natalie, how did you know I was here?"
"I followed you by car. How does it feel to be fired and abandoned by everyone?"
Did you do all this?"
"Just realizing that now?"
"How could you?"
My husband's eyes blazed with anger as he raised his arm to me.
"Stop! Don't touch my daughter!"
In that moment, a low voice echoed. Dad twisted my husband's arm, glaring at him with an intensity I had never seen before.
"Ouch, father-in-law! I'm sorry, please let go!"
My husband struggled to speak.
"Natalie, do something about your dad."
"You're wrong if you think this is the end. Hannah's revenge is far from over. I will chase you to the ends of the earth."
"That's impossible."
"Not for Dad."
"He's just a civil engineering company owner, right?"
"Only on the surface."
"What?"
My husband finally understood the sharpness in Dad's eyes. He begged us with a frightened face.
"Hannah is actually alive. Please stop all this."
"What do you mean?" "According to Stephen, Hannah was staying with the in-laws. He had lied to the police and in-laws, saying,
"My wife does terrible things to our daughter, so I had to hide her with my parents."
He even convinced the police by showing Hannah at the in-laws' house on his phone. No wonder the police and in-laws were cold to me. Relieved to hear Hannah was alive, I was still saddened by the terrible lies.
"I desperately wanted to start my business, so I lied to you. Hannah is safe. Isn't that enough?"
"I can't forgive you. We're getting a divorce."
"But I have nothing left. You're my only hope. Please forgive me."
My husband, who had been so domineering, was now pathetically apologizing, rubbing his forehead in the mud. "I never want to see your face again, and I'm taking custody of Hannah."
"Remember, if you ever do anything to our daughter, I'll be the one you'll have to answer to."
Stephen just stood there stunned, like a squashed frog. Leaving my husband behind, Dad and I headed to the in-laws. I desperately wanted to see Hannah as soon as possible. When I went to the in-laws, who were farmers deep in the mountains, and told them the truth, they were shocked and apologized. My daughter had been told by my husband,
"Stay here quietly, and I'll be nice to Mom. I'll come to get you after we make up."
Despite this, she had tried to contact me many times, worried about me. But since I wasn't at home, and the in-laws didn't have mobile phones, she had to give up. She had been patiently waiting to be picked up, but living in the countryside turned out to be quite comfortable, she told me with a smile. I was relieved to hear that the in-laws had taken good care of and cherished her. Afterward, I officially divorced. When I demanded alimony and child support from Stephen for the divorce proceedings, the in-laws stepped in to pay on his behalf, as he had no money. He returned to the in-laws' place and was working to repay the debt they shouldered under their strict supervision. My daughter and I returned to my father's house. Dad is overjoyed with his granddaughter. I plan to spend happy days watching my daughter grow up with Dad.